Risk management deals with reducing the chance and impact of adverse events on a project. Now, due to the iterative nature of agile projects or projects where you're using the Scrum framework, getting feedback from customers, building a product based on this feedback, releasing early, releasing every single sprint, getting feedback again, and building based on this feedback. Iterative nature, iterative approach. Risk management is already built in the project life cycle. But some people tell you no, Scrum is not about risk management. There's no risk management in Scrum. There's no risk log. Risk is not part of the agenda of a sprint retrospective, of a sprint review. No one does risk management. Which one of his statements is true? Is it a myth or fact that risk management is part of Scrum? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to manage risk using the Scrum framework. First, let's define risk management, which is the process by which organizations identify, evaluate, prioritize, and mitigate deviations from expected outcomes. The Scrum Guide 2020, the latest version of the Scrum Guide, doesn't mention the risk management, doesn't tell you how to risk manage, but the word risk is mentioned a few times in the Scrum Guide. Let's have a look. First, Scrum employs an iterative incremental approach to optimize predictability and to control risk. Artifacts that have low transparency can lead to decisions that diminish value and increase risk. When a sprint's horizon is too long, the sprint goal may become invalid. Complexity may rise and risk may increase. Shorter sprints can be employed to generate more learning cycles and limit risk of cost and effort to a smaller time frame. Is this user story even feasible? Can we do it? What's the cost? What's the time to market? Is it safe for the customer? Will it provide the expected outcome, the expected value to the customer? Will the customer love it? All these things need to be taken into consideration for all your user stories. As mentioned, the Scrum Guide 2020 doesn't tell you exactly how to do that. Yeah, doesn't tell you. You don't get a step-by-step guide on how to manage risk, and the Agile Manifesto, same thing. You don't get a step-by-step guide on how to manage risk, but I still believe that Scrum is all about risk. Scrum teams are aiming every single sprint to provide value by continuously reducing risk. Compare that to projects where we use waterfall project management, which I believe maintains a high level of risk throughout the whole project. Don't believe me? What do we focus on in waterfall projects? The designs, the requirements. We spend weeks, months building the perfect requirements, building the perfect designs. Then we go into development. So there will be weeks, months where the customer won't be getting any value. How much are we progressing towards the goal of a product? How much progress are we making? What value are we bringing? We don't know for several months because we are not releasing. We are not getting feedback. How do we even know what we will release after multiple months? The customer will still want that. How do we even know that? We don't know. High level of risk. Compare that now to Scrum teams. Continuously, every single sprint, releasing early, every single sprint with this mindset of keeping risk to a bare minimum. Why? Because we are ensuring every single sprint that we are building the right things. We are collecting feedback and then we are releasing again based on this feedback collected. What's the most important thing in a project? Providing value. Building a product that is beautifully good, that provides value to the customer. And the best way to do that is to release early and let the customer tell you if they love the product. Scrum teams are also cross-functional and have a sustainable pace. Cross-functionality reduces dependencies on other teams because we have all the skills, accesses, knowledge required to build a product within the team. No dependencies, a smoother project. Dependencies bring a higher risk to a project because we are dependent on other teams. Scrum teams have a sustainable pace. You know exactly what will happen in the next sprint because they are sustainable. This reduces risk and makes the team more predictable. The team is also stable. It's easier to calculate the costs of a project. Your stakeholders, upper management, directors, sponsors, they know that there's a high chance that in the next sprint, your Scrum team will be able to release an increment. So they know that you have a sustainable pace, a stable team. It's really easy to calculate the cost of your team. And you can compare that to the value that we might gain from releasing that increment in the next sprint. We're talking about 1 week or 2 weeks here. And then the stakeholders can make a decision based on the return on investment. Does it make sense to go ahead with doing this sprint? You can't do that with a waterfall project management model. That's why Scrum is so beautiful. And with agility, you are constantly accepting change, Change is okay. The market changes, the customer's taste change, that's okay. We just change the product backlog. We can do that every single sprint. You can't do that with waterfall project management because you're spending weeks building requirements, doing the design for weeks, for months. And all the Scrum events also take risk into consideration. Look at the sprint planning. What we are trying to do here is, as a team, deciding on how many user stories, tests, story points will take, how much work will take in the next sprint. We want to commit on a certain amount of story points or user stories and a sprint goal. That's our commitment, the sprint goal for the next sprint. And the way we estimate the work, if you're using story points, is we take risk into consideration, we take effort into consideration, we take uncertainty into consideration, all these things into consideration to predict what will happen in the next sprint. All these things will help us reduce risk. Manage risk, basically. The daily Scrum is sort of a planning session that we do every single day. The planning session, we talk about the tasks, we talk about what people are doing, where do they need help, any impediments slowing down or blocking the team, what are the risks, what's preventing us from meeting our expected outcome, what's making us deviate from expected outcome. That's what risk management is all about. So we do that in sprint planning. We do that every single day in the daily Scrum. There's also the sprint retrospectives where we talk about improvement, how to improve in future sprints in terms of people, technologies, our way of working, processes, in order to reduce risk. Yeah, to reduce risk, to not deviate from our expected outcome. There's also the backlog refinement, an activity, not really a Scrum event, but an activity which is important, where we talk about user stories. Remember, 2 stages of risk management. The user requirements level, we talk about, will this user story meet the expectations of a customer? How much will it cost? The time to market. All these risks are taken when we do the backlog refinement, and we are trying to understand what kind of work needs to be done for this user story. And there's also the sprint review, where we talk with our stakeholders. Every single sprint, we get feedback from our stakeholders to ensure, from the customers, from upper management, from directors, that we are meeting their expectations, that we are building the right things. Taking all this into consideration, who do you believe manages risk in a Scrum team? Many people believe it's the Scrum Master, but no. Like many things in Agile and in Scrum, is the whole team's responsibility. We are working as a team, the product owner, the developers, and the Scrum Master also working together to manage this risk. Again, we are trying to reduce the risk of deviating from the expected outcome. Everyone should be involved in that, not only the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master's role is to help the team reduce risk. Help the team identify impediments, solve impediments, ensure that they don't ignore impediments. But not only at the impediments level, at all levels, and also impediments. Some people believe that all impediments are wrong. All risk is wrong. There's something risky that you need to deliver to the market. Let's not deliver it. But what if this thing will provide immense amount of value? That's an opportunity. All risks are bad. Not all risks need to be reduced or eliminated. Do an experiment. Put it to the market to test your hypothesis that this thing will bring immense value if you put to the market, even though it's very risky. Which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile, Scrum, personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now. And I'll see you in a few seconds.